Beveilig je netwerk tegen digitale inbrekers. Typisch iets voor onze service-expert.
Joumana Haddad groeide op in Beirut, te midden van de burgeroorlog in een streng katholiek gezin. Nu is ze een vrijgevochten schrijfster, dichter en journalist en roept ze de Arabische vrouw op om zich te bevrijden. Omstreden en met de dood bedreigd is ze ook, al was het alleen al om de erotische glossie die ze uitgeeft. In haar boek Hoe ik Scheherazade heb vermoord rekent ze af met de vooroordelen over de Arabische vrouw. De komende 25 minuten is mijn gast Joumana Haddad. Welcome, Joumana.
Thank you.
Very good to have you here.
Very happy to be here.
I Killed Scheherazade, Confessions of an Angry Arab Woman. What would you say has been the most significant source for your anger or inspiration?
I think that, first of all, my upbringing. And, you know, the way you are raised and the way you live your life leaves layers on your soul. And in my case, these have been layers of anger and frustration all along. From the point where I had to live through war in my country and also witness a lot of hypocrisy, a lot of double standards. Going through my experience with my own conservative family, my dad who was so strict, my going to school in a religious institution and a nun's institution, all the constraints and the prohibitions that were imposed on me unjustly.
Yes.
And then also the fact that I have reached a point in my adult life where it has become to me absurd to be, you know, living in a place, in a region where so many injustices are, you know, forced upon women day after day, and not see an opposition or an adequate reaction, whether from women or men, to all these to all this oppression and all these humiliations.
Yeah, but because for the ones who don't know who Scheherazade is, maybe you could briefly tell us who she is and why you needed to kill her.
Yes, of course. Obviously, I used her just as a symbol in the book. It's not a book about Scheherazade, but Scheherazade is the heroine of a very famous book in our culture called The Arabian Nights, or The 1001 Nights. And the thing is, this book tells the story of a king who has been betrayed by his wife. So he decides that every day he's going to marry a virgin and then kill her in order to prevent her from betraying him. Then comes Scheherazade. She was educated, smart, she had lots of wit and imagination, and she survived. She managed to outsmart the man. She survived by telling him a story every night. So he wouldn't kill her in order to know the next day how the story was going to end.
Yeah, she knew how to please him.
Exactly. And at this point you would tell me, well, she was intelligent, she was educated, why did you have to kill her? She seems like a very positive model for a woman. And I would say she might have been. At the moment when the book has been written, she definitely has portrayed a very avant-garde model for a woman in those days. But now, in this 21st century, I cannot allow myself anymore to accept that I need to compromise with the authority. I'm not talking about the man only, I'm talking about any authority that is trying to impose things on me unjustly, to compromise on my basic right, on what is duly mine.
Because the start is never equal then. Anyway.
Exactly, yes. Because I'm telling you my story is because I want from you to give me what is mine. So where's the justice in all of it?
So you wrote your book in response of the Western stereotype of the suppressed Arab burqa-clad Arab woman. And in the foreword you say it was inevitable to write this book. Why for you was it inevitable?
Well, first of all, one of the motivations was a response to this cliche that the West has of the Arab woman. Because, you know, when you say Arab woman in the West, and I don't want to generalize, but usually the first image that comes into mind is the image of the oppressed victim, poor Arab woman who needs to be saved from her destiny.
How true is that image?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just
Of course, that image is true, and I'm not denying it in the book. And I know that, unfortunately, it represents a big chunk of the population, of the female population in the Arab world. But what I needed to say is that, please, that image is incomplete. There is another Arab woman, there are different Arab women, in plural, women who are strong, who are emancipated, who are trying to struggle for themselves to make a better life for other women as well. And we need you to pay attention to those women. We need you to recognize them, because it would, in a way, balance this image that you have about the poor, helpless victim.
Yes, because, well, literature has played a major role in how you see the world, and it helped you being more liberated than the image that we have. What have been the most formative books for you?
Well, in a way, books have saved my life, and it's not an overstatement to say that. But weirdly so, the books that have shaped this thirst for freedom, which is mainly the most thing that characterizes me as a human being, are, if I tell you, like, for example, I read books by the Marquis de Sade, or by Henry Miller, or by Anais Nin when I was 12 or 13 or 14 years old. And these are very uncommon readings for such a young age. But at the same time, as shocking as they were for a young girl who was educated in such a strict environment, they have also saved me, because they helped me know and discover that freedom, first and foremost, begins in your mind, and that in your mind, in your imagination, which is your kingdom, you can do whatever you want, you can think about whatever you want, and you can transgress all these laws that you feel are imposed unjustly on you.
Yeah.
And this is how I think the first seeds of my character
Because
and of my career.
The most important limitations that you grew up with, a girl, that these books helped you to get rid of?
Well, one of them, if I have to think about one, and a major one, was, you know, the taboo of sexuality and the relationship that you have with your body. Because you are taught from a very young age that your body is something that you need to be ashamed of. It's something, one of the wrong things. The second thing is that you are taught that your body as a woman is a gift to the man. And this is why, for example, it is until now expected from a woman to not have a sexual life before marriage.
Yes.
So she needs to save herself for the man she's going to marry, because her body belongs to him. She's giving it to him. She's never an actor. She is just an object. While the man can dispose of his own body and of her body freely, and he can also brag about it. So this is a second thing. And I wanted to save myself and other women who think like me from this reception situation.
Yeah.
I wanted to be an actor in my life. I wanted to say, this is my body, I own it, I can do whatever I want with it. Whether I want to save it for one person, or whether I want to use it with as many people as I want, you know?
So did you had a lot of fights with your parents, and especially your father, reading those books and having all these different ideas?
Not during my teenage years, because I was quite, I was living my own life in my own world with my books. I was a very quiet child in a way. They would come home and they would see me reading, and they would never know, because I used to hide these dangerous books. They would never imagine that I was capable of reading such books in secret. But then when I started writing and publishing my writings, that's when the first spark of confrontation began, especially with my father, because my mother we had a different relationship. She was in a way a silent accomplice. She was very proud of me, and she wanted me to have a different life than the one she did. And even my father now, he's very proud of me, and he respects my choices. Yeah. But it took a long time to happen.
Because when you started publishing, people thought that your work was written by a man. Why was that?
Because, you know, whenever you're audacious, and I hate that label, but whenever you're tagged as an audacious writer, they always think that there's a man writing the things that you're publishing. And it's in a way a position of condescendence towards women. It means that they think a woman could never write these things. There's always a kind of a man behind. At least in my world, that's the way it is. And I used to resent that, and it used to make me angry. And it's one of the angers that I wanted to talk about in I Killed Scheherazade.
Yeah, because in your book you have more examples of that mindset that institutionalizes the oppression that is happening in your country. We've chosen a little part, and we would like you to read that out loud for us. Yeah, go ahead.
Being an Arab today implies, first and foremost, yet without generalization, mastering the art of schizophrenia. Why? Because being an Arab today means you need to be a hypocrite. It means you cannot live and think what you really want to live and think honestly, spontaneously, and candidly.
How were you able to overcome that sort of suppression, that sort of mindset?
Well, like I said before, first and foremost, it started in my mind. Then, when I started writing, I ran into the French language because I was scared to express the things that I wanted to express in my own language. You know, because there are lots of fears that you have with the Arabic language. If you want to talk about something which is a big taboo, you prefer to use English or French, at least in Lebanon.
Do you get more or less reactions?
Yes, you do. And this is one of signs of hypocrisy, because it's the same words. And then I thought, I'm just being a coward. I mean, I know that French is a language that I love, but I'm just being a coward. And when I first wrote a text of mine in Arabic, I always, compare the text to a battle scene. You could see the blood, you could see the dead people on the paper, because it was like a big fight, a big war that I was doing, because I wanted to force this language that was telling me not to say these things. I wanted to force her to say these things, the things that I felt, the things that I thought, the things that was my right to say and think and feel and express. So it hasn't been easy, but then I started feeling, not victorious, but each text, each poem that I wrote, and in which I named the things that I wanted to name with their own names, was like a small victory. And of course, metaphors are a part of the writing game. But in my writing, I decided to avoid metaphors because it was a political stance in my case to be able to say the breast is a breast and the penis is a penis.
But as if that wasn't enough, you started to publish a glossy erotic magazine, Haddad, The Body. It is, how do you see the role of the body in the emancipation of women?
Oh, it's one of the main, I think that the emancipation of women relies on three main pillars. One of them is, of course, a liberation from religion. Because, and I'm talking here about the monotheist religions. I have studied them, and my next book, they're going to have a large part in my next book, the one I'm writing now. The three monotheist religions have played a big part in, treating women as an accessory or putting them in a second position. If you just go back to the story of the creation, the woman is just the rib. She is a tiny part of the whole, which is masculine. And this is the first thing. At least fight for secularism. If you're not fighting for an anti-religious or a liberation from religion, at least fight for secularism. The second part is, of course, sexuality, because sexuality has always been used as a tool to oppress women. And here, when I say oppress, I'm not talking only about the woman wearing a burqa. Because to me, the woman wearing a burqa and treated as an instrument of temptation, which needs to hide itself in order to protect the man from being, tempted, is no different than the woman who accepts to be treated like a piece of meat, or who is treated like a piece of meat, whether in magazines or in advertisement, or also in her own gaze towards herself.
So she has to redefine.
That's also patriarchal, stance. That's also patriarchal oppression, because she is not seeing herself. She is seeing with her own eyes. She is seeing herself and assessing herself with the eyes of the patriarchal authority. So that's a second very important thing. And of course, the third thing is fighting for education and economical independence, because that is a big tool to give power for women. It's important for the woman to believe in herself, to have a career, to believe that she has the right to dream of and to have ambitions and to long for something more than just waiting for the right husband.
But you're addressing yourself now to women like you in the Arab world, not to the to the image that we have, the oppressed burqa-clad women that are in, to me, no position to make a lot of changes in their life.
She can. And I'm going to give you one small example of how a woman in a burqa can do a lot, at least to help the next generations. And she's not doing that. And this is why I put a big responsibility on women, not only in the East, not only in the Arab world, but in the West as well. Like, for example, this woman who is, deprived of so many rights is usually told, your only place is the house. You can educate your kids, you can raise them, you can cook, you can take care of the house, and that's your kingdom, and that's it. Well, most of these women complain about their lives, and then they raise their daughters to be the same as them, to be future victims. They don't give them this thirst for something more, for something better, and it's enough to just give them a small glimpse of how life could be so much more interesting if they wanted more for themselves than just getting married at 14 years old. And they also raise their sons to be as misogynic, as humiliating towards women as their own husbands, fathers, brothers, etc. So they're not doing enough. And motherhood is a great power, you know.
And in the same time, the society, of course, has to redefine itself, helping it out, because women alone cannot.
Of course, but it all starts, you cannot say, I'm going to wait for society or for lawyers or for the legal system to do something. You should start your own, taking care of your own small garden, and then things will come together.
Some people say that your style is quite provocative or radical even. Do you think that you need that to be effective in the change you want to make?
I don't think so. I know that I'm described as provocative, and I don't mind that, but it's not my target. I always say that provocation is just a collateral damage of who I am. I'm just being who I am. I'm being truthful to my thoughts, to my ideas, and to also my belief in my human rights, So, and by exercising these rights, I am being provocative, at least in the region where I come from, and sometimes to other parts of the world as well. But I'm not seeking provocation as such. Sometimes it's important to shock others, but you have to go beyond the superficial shock. You need to seek the deep earthquake, and this is something that I seek in my writings.
Can you describe the sacrifices then you had to make for enacting your beliefs?
I never think of them as sacrifices. Sometimes people tell me that I'm courageous or that I'm paying a big price. I know that I'm paying a big price.
What price are you paying?
One of the prices is, of course, the social ostracism that sometimes I'm subjected to. I'm very much. A recent article about me was entitled "The Most Hated Woman in Lebanon," for example. Do I care? I really don't, and I honestly don't. Why? Not because I don't consider criticism or I don't recognize criticism. This is beyond criticism. I love criticism when it's coming from people I trust, when it's coming from people who I know are criticizing me for my own good. But I cannot be affected by it when it's coming from people who are trying to stop me from doing the things that I believe in. So I just... Instead of, let's say I receive 50 emails every day, 25 are insults and threats and, any kind of intimidation, and 25 are messages of support and encouragement and love. I always focus on the 25 positive messages, and this is what keeps me going on. It's not my courage, it's my passion, it's also my faith that at the end of the day, I'm not imposing my convictions on you, I'm just practicing them, and this is my basic right. You can either, ignore this book or this magazine or my my poetry or my ideas, or you can embrace them. You're free to do that as much as I'm free to express them.
Yeah, you say in this book that you think that Arab women in the Arab countries are not doing enough to change their state. But in the changes that we've seen and the revolutions in the last couple of years in the Arab world, I do see women. I do see a hopeful image of the woman in that revolution. Do you think it has changed anything for the position?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to disappoint you, but as much as I was proud at the beginning of the revolutions, let's take the Tunisian and Egyptian examples. As much as I was proud and hopeful, as much as I was also skeptical and scared. Why? Because one way for me to measure the change of a certain country from dictatorship towards a real democracy or a positive, a positive situation or structure is the situation of women in that country and the role that is given to them or the role that they take. Because a woman should never say, this world is mine, give it to me. The woman should say, this world is mine, I'm going to take it. That's what I believe in. So we have all seen women, like you said, participate in the revolutions at the moment of the visible, level of the revolutions, contribute in the demonstrations, etc. But then, at the moment of the formation of the new structures, they have almost disappeared. Few voices were heard. Women were subjected to virginity tests. I once heard a lawyer, an Egyptian lawyer on TV, lecturing women on how a woman was not created to participate in the political life of her country. How many women in the new governments that were formed in Tunisia and Egypt? Very few, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 at the maximum.
But is it possible?
So this means they were just used as instruments to give credibility to a popular movement, and then they were put aside, especially now with the integralist, religious integralist threat. So it's unfortunate that in the Arab world we are many times forced to choose between one monster and another monster, and this is what happened. But at the same time, it is necessary for people to experience now the ugliness of the religious extremist regime in order for them, for maybe in 20 years, move towards a very positive, a real positive change.
Then how, if women for the next few years, well, I don't think you believe that they are able to take their role in politics.
No, not when a woman is advertising for a seat in the parliament with a picture of a rose instead of her own picture, because she cannot put her picture. This happened in Hizb Noor in Egypt. So it's absurd. What are you talking about? And who am I choosing?
And where do you see any hope then?
I see a hope, like I said, it's definitely bound to change. We cannot keep on going backwards. I'm saying that, of course, the Arab world has been falling and falling for the past century. And we have not hit rock bottom yet, but we are going to hit rock bottom. These revolutions are not the new start. The new start is going to happen after people experience, like I said, how horrible it is to live under a religious extremist regime, which is no better than a dictatorship. Both are terrible.
And they will find that out soon.
They will find that out, and then they will really start seeking a new dignity for themselves. And this is what it is. This is what being a human being is all about, believing in your own dignity.
Do you think, and I'm asking it on a deeper level, so not that we can drive when we want and that we dress how we want, but do you think that Western women have achieved more?
You know, I have always looked upon Western women like when I see the fight that Western women have done in the 60s and the late 50s and the 60s for women's rights everywhere. And of course, that was a big example for me. I call myself a post-feminist, by the way, and not a feminist for many reasons, but that was a major thing in the formation of my own philosophy and the way I look at life. But then what really scares me now or worries me is that in many Western countries, women have become so relaxed that they think that it's not important to fight anymore. We have won this.
A superficial feminism.
Exactly. And not only that, it's like you have to wake up every morning and go to war. If you don't do that, you don't stay at the place where you have arrived. You go backwards. And this is the real threat in the Western world now. The feeling that you take all these rights for granted and you don't fight for them anymore. You know, this book has been published in 13 different countries and in many European countries where I thought, why would people read it? They cannot relate. Maybe they would read it out of curiosity. And you cannot imagine how women in Norway or in Germany or in the Netherlands have come to me after my talks and told me how they related to my speech.
So we all have still our battles
We
to
all
fight.
have issues.
So one definition about yourself that you actually like is being a poet.
It's the only definition I accept.
Exactly. So maybe it's a good idea that we could end this night with a poem of yours, reading it out for our viewers so they have something to think about before they go to sleep. Yeah? So I give you, you know it by heart.
I know it by heart.
And you
I'm
do it
gonna
in
look at the camera.
Arabic.
عندما أجلس أمامك أيها الغريب أعرف كم تحتاج إلى الزمن كي تردم المسافة إلي. أنت في أوج الذكاء وأنا في أوج المأدبة. أنت تفكر كيف ستبدأ حديث المغازلة وأنا تحت ستار وقاري أكون قد فرغت من التهامك.
That sounded beautiful. Thank you very much for being
Thank
here,
you so
Joumana
much.
Haddad. Dit was het, Gesprek op 2. Volgende week dan zit hier Chris Keijne en hij praat met Morris Glassman, de Engelse baron die de Labour-partij nieuw leven wil inblazen met oude ideeën. En ik hoop dat u dan weer kijkt. Voor nu, een hele fijne nacht. Thank you very much.